Madeline, before we leave, there's something we need to discuss. My mother's voice held an edge I hadn't heard in years as she stepped onto the porch, pulling her suitcase behind her. Her fingers were nervously twisting the handle, a gesture that immediately transported me back to that night 13 years ago when she told me about Dad's business failing. I glanced at the clock on my dashboard, 6:04 a.m. Something wasn't right. Mom? I said, the forced smile already feeling heavy on my face. I got out of the car to help with the luggage, but then I saw her. Jessica emerging from the house with her own suitcase in tow. My smile vanished, a cold realization creeping up my spine. What's going on? I asked, though deep down, I already knew. My mother turned to me, her expression a practiced mix of sympathy and determination. Oh Madeline, we decided Jessica should come instead of you. She's been so stressed lately, and she really needs this trip. My chest tightened. Instead of me? Mom, I've been planning this for years. I paid for everything. She waved her hand dismissively as if I'd just pointed out something trivial. And we're grateful, sweetheart, but you're always working so hard. You can take another trip later. Jessica needs this right now. Jessica didn't even have the decency to look guilty. She just smirked, shifting her weight onto one hip. Thanks for understanding, sis, she said, her tone dripping with fake gratitude. I stared at the two of them, my heart pounding in my chest. My dad shuffled out a moment later, avoiding eye contact as he handed me his suitcase. This is unbelievable, I said, my voice shaking. This was supposed to be our trip, something for me to share with you. Well, it still is, my mom said with a smile. Just with Jessica instead. Don't make this a big deal, Madeline. Your sister really needs a break. As I stood there, the weight of their betrayal crushing my chest, a memory flashed through my mind, one I tried so hard to forget. I was 16, sitting at our kitchen table, staring at the pile of unpaid bills. Dad's business had just failed, and Mom was crying in their bedroom. Jessica was sick again, needing more medication, more doctor visits. I remembered the weight of responsibility settling onto my shoulders as I picked up the classifieds, circling job listings with trembling hands. My name is Madeline, and for the past 3 years, I've been working overtime, saving every spare penny to give my parents a trip they'd never forget. Flights, luxury hotels, guided tours, I planned every detail down to the last dinner reservation. But as I stood there in my parents' driveway, watching my sister get into the back seat of my car, I realized something I'd been avoiding for years. It didn't matter how much effort I put in. In their eyes, Jessica would always come first. I clenched my jaw, biting back the sharp retort sitting on the tip of my tongue. While they were loading their bags, I quickly pulled out my phone and sent a text to Charlotte, my best friend since college. They just pulled the worst betrayal imaginable. Taking them to airport now. Call you after. Her response was immediate. What happened? Are you okay? Later. Planning something they deserve. I forced a tight smile and opened the trunk. Let's get going then, I said, my voice flat. If they wanted to prioritize her over me, fine. They could go with her, but I wasn't about to let them enjoy it. The drive to the airport was suffocatingly quiet, except for Jessica's incessant chatter. Oh my gosh, Mom, did you see that TikTok about Paris? I can't wait to go shopping there. Do you think we'll have time for that, or will the tours take up the whole day? My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter as I stared straight ahead, forcing myself not to say anything. My mom chuckled softly. Of course we'll have time. We'll figure it out when we get there. Jessica leaned forward from the back seat, her voice grating. You're not mad, right? I mean, this is really big of you, letting me go. I could never have afforded this on my own. I clenched my jaw and forced a tight smile. Of course, Jessica. Enjoy the trip. As we drove, another memory surfaced, Jessica's 12th birthday. She'd been sick that year, really sick. The kind of sick that had us all holding our breath, waiting for test results. I remembered giving up my college savings, the money I'd earned from 2 years of part-time jobs, to help pay for her treatments. Mom and Dad had cried, hugged me, told me I was their rock. But once Jessica got better, it was like they forgot. By the time we pulled up to the airport drop-off zone, my patience was hanging by a thread. As I helped unload their luggage, my mom gave me a hug. "Thank you for understanding, sweetheart. This means a lot to us and to Jessica." I nodded stiffly. "Sure, Mom." Jessica beamed as she wheeled her suitcase toward the entrance. "Thanks, Meline. You're the best." I stood there watching them disappear into the terminal, my chest tight with anger and hurt. The ride back home was a blur. I replayed the conversation in my head over and over, each word cutting deeper than the last. "This means a lot to Jessica. You're not mad, right? You're always working so hard." Without a second thought, I marched into the house, pulled out my laptop, and logged into every travel account I'd used to book the trip. Hotel reservations? Cancelled. Tours? Refunded. Airline upgrades? Gone. I stared at the confirmation emails piling up in my inbox, feeling the tightness in my chest start to ease. They wanted to take Jessica instead of me? Fine, but they wouldn't be staying in 5-star hotels or enjoying private tours on my dime. I picked up my phone and called Charlotte, the only person who truly understood my family dynamics. "Hey, Mad," she answered on the second ring. "How did the airport drop-off go?" I let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, you're going to love this." As I recounted the morning's events, Charlotte's initial gasps of disbelief turned to sounds of approval when I got to the part about canceling everything. "Finally," she exclaimed. "I've been waiting years for you to stand up to them. I can't believe they did this. After everything you've done for them," Charlotte finished. "Mad, do you remember what I told you during our senior year? When you were working yourself to exhaustion trying to help them with Jessica's medical bills? You said I wasn't responsible for fixing everything," I murmured. "Exactly. And now you're finally acting on it. How does it feel?" I thought about it for a moment, letting myself really feel the weight of what I'd done. "Terrifying," I admitted. "But also, right. Like I can finally breathe." Little did I know, this was just the beginning. The real storm would hit when they landed in Paris and discovered exactly what their betrayal had cost them. The calls started as soon as their flight landed. My phone buzzed repeatedly as I worked at my desk, the vibrations creating an annoying dance across the polished wood surface. I glanced at the screen, 5 missed calls from Mom, 3 from Jessica, and 2 from Dad. A string of increasingly frantic text messages followed. "Mom, Meline, what's going on? The hotel won't let us check in. The reservation is missing. Mom, call me immediately. Jessica, fix this now. We're standing here looking like idiots. Dad, please call your mother." I set my phone face down and continued working on my project report. The deadline was tomorrow, and I wasn't about to let their drama interfere with my work. Not anymore. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Charlotte. "Your mom just called me," she said when I picked up. "She's freaking out. Said something about the hotel having no record of their reservation?" I leaned back in my chair, a small smile playing at my lips. "Really? How strange. Mad." Charlotte's laugh was equal parts shocked and delighted. "You actually did it. You canceled everything? Every single thing." I started ticking off items on my fingers. The 5-star hotels I spent months researching? Gone. The private cooking class with that famous chef Jessica was so excited about after seeing my itinerary? Cancelled. The skip-the-line passes for all the museums? Refunded. Oh my God. Charlotte's voice dropped to a whisper. What about the river cruise? The one with the champagne dinner? Especially that. They can buy tickets for the regular tourist boats like everyone else. If they can find seats. My phone buzzed with another incoming call from Mom. I declined it without hesitation. They're going to be furious, Charlotte said, but I could hear the smile in her voice. They're already furious. But you know what? For the first time in my life, I don't care. After hanging up with Charlotte, I opened my laptop and checked my email. The cancellation confirmations had all come through. 3 luxury hotels, 6 private tours, for special dining experiences, and various upgrades, all gone. I'd spent 3 years planning this trip, making sure every detail was perfect. Now it would be just another budget vacation. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a voicemail from Jessica. "Meline, this is so petty," she snapped, her voice dripping with entitlement. "We're stuck here because of you. You need to call the hotel and fix it now. I can't believe you're being such a..." I deleted the message before it finished. Opening my bottom desk drawer, I pulled out the thick folder labeled "Family Trip." Inside were all the carefully printed itineraries, confirmation numbers, and brochures I'd collected. Everything I'd planned to make this trip special for my parents. Another memory surfaced, me at 22, just graduated from college. I'd landed my first real job and wanted to take my parents out to celebrate. But Jessica had just broken up with her boyfriend and needed cheering up, so they canceled our dinner plans to comfort her instead. I ended up eating takeout alone in my tiny apartment. My phone rang again. "Mom." This time, I answered. "Meline, what did you do?" she hissed before I could speak. "The hotel says our reservation was canceled, and none of the tours are booked anymore." "I canceled them," I replied calmly. There was a long, stunned silence before she whispered, "Why would you do that?" "Oh, I don't know," I said, my tone laced with sarcasm. "Maybe because you decided to take Jessica on my trip? You're lucky I even drove you to the airport." "We thought you'd understand," she snapped. "Understand what?" I asked, my voice rising. That years of saving and planning didn't matter because Jessica needed a break? That my hard work meant nothing to you? Guess what, Mom? I don't understand, and I don't care to. You've ruined everything. Jessica's voice came through in the background. This was supposed to be special. It was supposed to be special, I agreed. When it was my trip. The one I planned and paid for. But you all made your choice. Meline, my mother's voice turned pleading. Please, just help us book something else. Anywhere decent. We'll pay you back. I laughed. With what money? Jessica can't even pay her own rent half the time, and you and Dad spent your savings on her last emergency. The silence that followed told me I'd hit a nerve. That's not fair, Mom finally said, her voice small. No, what's not fair is how you've treated me my entire life. But you know what? I'm done. Figure it out yourselves. I hung up and turned my phone off. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in years. I made coffee, sat on my balcony, and enjoyed the quiet. No crisis to manage, no Jessica to placate, no parents to please. Just peace. Until my doorbell rang. Charlotte stood there holding 2 cups of coffee and wearing a concerned expression. Your mom called me again last night. And this morning. And about 20 minutes ago. I took one of the coffees and led her inside. Let me guess, she wanted you to talk some sense into me? Actually, Charlotte settled onto my couch, she wanted me to loan them money. Said they're stuck in some budget hotel that's absolutely horrible and Jessica is having anxiety attacks about the whole situation. I snorted. Let me show you this horrible hotel. I pulled up the booking site on my phone. It's a perfectly decent 3-star place near the city center. Clean, safe, and about 1/5 the price of where they were supposed to stay. So they're just being dramatic? When is Jessica not dramatic? I pulled up my work email and showed Charlotte a new message. Look at this. While they're complaining about their horrible accommodations, I just got promoted to senior project manager. Mad, that's amazing. Charlotte hugged me. See what happens when you stop letting them drain all your energy? My phone buzzed with a text from Dad, your mother's very upset. This isn't like you, Meline. He's right, I said, showing Charlotte the message. This isn't like me. The old me would have given in by now. Would have found a way to fix everything. And the new you? I typed a response, "You're right, Dad. The daughter who let you walk all over her doesn't live here anymore." Then I turned my phone off again. Charlotte stayed for another hour, helping me sort through old family photos I'd been meaning to organize. In almost every picture, there was a pattern: Jessica at the center, me on the periphery. Jessica opening presents while I held the camera. Jessica blowing out birthday candles while I steadied her cake. Jessica at her college graduation while I worked a double shift to help pay for her party. I always knew they favored her, I said, setting aside a particularly telling photo where my parents were both focused on Jessica while I stood awkwardly to the side. But seeing it like this makes it impossible to ignore, Charlotte finished. She picked up another photo, me at 16, dark circles under my eyes from working after school. "You know, I never understood why you didn't tell them no back then. When they asked you to give up your college savings for Jessica's treatments." "They didn't ask," I said quietly. "They just told me they needed it, and I gave it. Because that's what I always did. What I was always expected to do." My phone lit up with another message when I turned it back on. This time from Jessica, "Found a decent hotel, but they want a credit card with enough limit for the whole stay. Since this is your fault, you should let us use yours." I showed Charlotte the message and we both burst out laughing. The audacity, Charlotte shook her head. "Please tell me you're not going to respond." "Oh, I am." I typed quickly, "Since this is your trip now, you should figure out how to pay for it. Like I did for 3 years. More messages flooded in. "Mom, we had to cancel 2 tours because we can't afford them." "Is this what you wanted?" "Dad, your sister's very upset. You know how she gets." "Jessica, thanks for ruining everything." Again. I set my phone down and turned to Charlotte. "You know what's funny? They keep saying I ruined everything. But they're the ones who took my trip and made it about Jessica." Again. "Just like they always do," Charlotte said softly. "Just like they always did," I corrected her. "Not anymore." That evening, alone in my apartment, I opened my laptop and looked at the folder of canceled reservations. 3 years of planning, of overtime shifts and skipped vacations, all to give my parents the trip of a lifetime. And in one thoughtless moment, they'd shown me exactly how much that meant to them. My phone buzzed one last time for the day. A message from Dad: "Your mother's crying. Jessica's talking about coming home early." "Is that what you wanted?" I thought about it for a long moment. Was this what I wanted? The tears, the drama, the guilt trips? No. What I wanted was for them to understand, finally, what it felt like to be disappointed. To have something taken away. To be an afterthought. I typed my response carefully. What I wanted was to share a special trip with my parents. What I got was another reminder that Jessica will always come first. You made your choice. Now you get to live with it. Then I opened my browser and started researching flights to Italy. Maybe it was time for a solo trip. One where I wouldn't have to worry about anyone else's happiness but my own. I was working at my desk when I heard the angry pounding on my front door. Through the peephole, I saw them, my parents and Jessica, fresh from their ruined European vacation, their faces twisted with fury. I took a deep breath and opened the door. "How dare you?" Jessica burst in without invitation. "You completely ruined everything." Mom pushed past me too, her eyes red with angry tears. "We had to stay in a horrible hotel in the worst part of Paris. All because you decided to be vindictive." "Vindictive?" I repeated. "That's interesting coming from people who stole my trip." "We didn't steal anything," Jessica snapped. "We just made a practical decision. You can take another trip anytime." "That's enough, Meline," my father's voice carried that familiar tone of authority. "What you did was childish and cruel." I met his gaze steadily. "No, Dad. What's cruel is how you've treated me my entire life. Always putting Jessica first, always expecting me to understand, to sacrifice." "Well, I'm done." "Done?" Mom's voice rose sharply. Jessica had anxiety attacks because of the stress. Of course she did, I said calmly. Heaven forbid Jessica deal with any real consequences in her life. You're just jealous, Jessica spat. You've always been jealous of me. Jealous? Of what? I laughed without humor. Your inability to support yourself? Your need to have mom and dad rescue you from every little problem? I stepped forward. I planned that trip for 3 years. I worked overtime, saved every penny, and you took it without a second thought because, as always, what Jessica wants is more important than anything I do. We're your family, Mom pleaded. We thought you'd understand. That's the problem. You always expect me to understand, to give in. Well, I finally understand something. I deserve better than this. Better than your own family? Dad demanded. Better than being treated like an ATM with a conscience. Better than sacrificing everything for a sister who's never had to sacrifice anything. They stood there in stunned silence, as if they'd never really seen me before. I want you to leave, I said firmly. And don't come back. I have my own trip to plan. To Italy. Alone. Italy? Mom's voice cracked with shock and jealousy. But you were supposed to go to Europe with us. No, Mom. I was supposed to take you and Dad to Europe. But you chose differently. Now I'm choosing for myself. This isn't over, Jessica threatened as they moved toward the door. Actually, it is. I met each of their eyes in turn. Don't come here again. I won't be opening the door. As I closed the door on their protests, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, pure, unfiltered freedom. Their anger, their guilt trips, their manipulation, none of it had power over me anymore. That evening, Charlotte came over with a bottle of wine to hear about the confrontation. I wish I could have seen their faces, she said, pouring us each a glass. Especially when you told them about Italy. It was satisfying, I admitted. But you know what the best part was? For the first time, I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little bit. Because you have nothing to feel guilty about, Charlotte said firmly. Have you booked everything for Italy yet? I nodded, pulling out my laptop to show her. 5-star hotel in Rome, private cooking class in Florence, wine tasting in Tuscany. Everything I planned for them, but better. And this time, it's just for me. My phone buzzed, another message from Mom, we need to talk about this, Meline. This isn't like you, acting so selfishly. Charlotte read the message over my shoulder and snorted. Selfishly? After everything you've done for them? I deleted the message without responding. You know what's funny? She's right, this isn't like me. The old me would have already apologized, would be trying to make it up to them somehow. And the new you? The new me is done apologizing for putting myself first. Later that night, after Charlotte left, I sat on my balcony looking at the stars. Another memory surfaced, my 25th birthday. I'd planned a small dinner at my favorite restaurant, invited my parents and a few close friends. But Jessica had gotten into another fight with her boyfriend, and my parents had canceled at the last minute to console her. I'd ended up paying for everyone else's meals because they'd counted on splitting the bill with my parents. My phone lit up with a text from Dad, your mother's heartbroken. She keeps crying about how she's losing you. I stared at the message for a long time before typing my response, she's not losing me, Dad. She's just finally seeing me. The next morning, I woke up to an email from Jessica. The subject line read, I get it now. Dear Meline. I've been thinking about the trip, obviously, and maybe I was a bit entitled about the whole thing. It wasn't my trip to take, and I shouldn't have expected you to pay for everything. But you're still my sister, and I miss how things used to be. Love, Jessica. I showed the email to Charlotte over our lunch break. Wow, she said, reading it twice. That's almost an apology. Almost, I agreed. But notice how she misses how things used to be when I just gave in to whatever she wanted. Are you going to respond? I thought about it for a moment. No. She needs to learn that actions have consequences. Words aren't enough anymore. That afternoon, I had a meeting with my boss about the project I'd completed, the one I'd focused on instead of dealing with their drama during the trip. She was impressed with my work, especially how I'd handled it despite what she called obvious personal stress. "I've been watching your progress," she said. "You've really stepped up these past few weeks. How would you feel about leading the new international project?" I thought about the old me, how I would have hesitated, worried about how the extra hours would affect my availability for family emergencies. But those days were over. "I'd love to," I said firmly. When I got home that evening, there was a voicemail from my mother. Her voice was different this time, softer, almost broken. "Meline, honey. I've been doing a lot of thinking. About the trip, about everything. I found your old college fund bank book while cleaning yesterday. The one you emptied for Jessica's treatments. I'd forgotten, or maybe I made myself forget. We never really thanked you properly for that, did we? Or for so many other things. I understand if you don't want to talk to us right now. But when you're ready, maybe we could have coffee. Just us?" I saved the message but didn't call back. Maybe someday we'd have that coffee. Maybe someday we'd talk about all the years of uneven treatment, of taken for granted sacrifices, of Jessica first decisions. But not yet. First, I had a trip to Italy to plan, a promotion to celebrate, and a new life to embrace. That night, I opened my laptop and started a new document. At the top, I typed, "Things I want." Not things I could do for others, not ways to make someone else's life easier. Just things I wanted for myself. Learn Italian. Take cooking classes. Start a photography blog. Travel somewhere new every year. Build a life that's truly mine. As I typed, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, pure, uncomplicated excitement about the future. No guilt, no obligations, no need to check if my plans would work for everyone else. Just me, finally choosing myself. The moment I landed in Rome, I felt something I'd never experienced before, pure, unfiltered freedom. No family drama to manage, no Jessica's needs to consider, no parents to please. Just me and the endless possibilities of a new adventure. My first morning, I sat at a small cafe near the Spanish Steps, sipping espresso and watching the city wake up. My phone buzzed with another message from Mom. "Please, Meline. We need to talk about this. You can't just cut us off completely." I didn't just delete the message, I blocked their numbers completely. This trip was about me, not them. Not anymore. I spent my days exploring the city, taking cooking classes, and discovering little restaurants hidden away from the tourist spots. Each evening, I wrote in my journal, documenting not just what I'd done, but how it felt to move through the world without the weight of family obligations. While in Florence, I got a call from Charlotte. "Your mom showed up at my office today," she said without preamble. She was crying, saying she doesn't understand why you won't talk to them. They're planning some big family intervention at Christmas. Your mom said all the relatives will be there to help you understand the importance of family. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Well, they can have their intervention without me. I won't be there. You have other plans? Yes, I said firmly. I'm spending Christmas in the Alps. Already booked a chalet in Switzerland. After hanging up, I opened my laptop and sent a group email to my entire family. Dear all. I understand there are plans for a family intervention at Christmas. I won't be attending. In fact, I won't be attending any future family gatherings. My decision to distance myself from this toxic dynamic is not up for debate or discussion. To be crystal clear, I am not having a crisis. I am not being dramatic. I am making a conscious choice to prioritize my own well-being after years of being treated as an afterthought. Do not try to contact me through friends or colleagues. This decision is final. Meline. I hit send without hesitation. Then I turned off my phone, closed my laptop, and walked out onto my hotel balcony. The sun was setting over Florence, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink. For the first time in my life, I felt completely free. When I returned home from Italy, I moved to a new apartment in a different part of the city. I didn't give my family the new address. I changed my phone number, created new email accounts, and started fresh. Charlotte helped me move, and as we unpacked boxes in my new place, she asked, "Are you sure about this? Cutting them off completely?" I placed a framed photo on my new desk, me standing in front of the Colosseum, smiling wider than I had in years. Absolutely sure. You know what I realized in Italy? I've spent my whole life being defined by my relationship to them. Meline, the reliable daughter. Meline, the supportive sister. Meline, the family fixer. And now I'm just Meline. And that's more than enough. One Sunday morning, as I was having breakfast at my favorite local cafe, I saw them. My parents and Jessica, walking down the street, presumably headed to their regular Sunday brunch. They hadn't seen me yet. For a moment, I felt the old pull, the urge to call out, to try one more time to make them understand. But then I remembered the look on their faces that morning at the airport, the casual way they dismissed years of my planning and sacrifice. I turned back to my book and took another sip of coffee. They walked past without noticing me, deep in conversation about something, probably another of Jessica's crises. I felt nothing. No pain, no regret, no desire to reconnect. Just peaceful certainty that I'd made the right choice. That evening, I sent Charlotte a text, "Saw the family today. Felt nothing but relief that I'm free." Her response made me smile. "That's called healing, honey. You did it." This was my new beginning. No more being the family fixer, no more putting myself last, no more endless sacrifices for people who took me for granted. From now on, I would live life on my own terms. Looking out over the city, I smiled. Tomorrow, I would start my advanced Italian class. Next month, I would lead my first international project. And next year? Well, the world was full of possibilities. This was my life now. My choices, my adventures, my happiness. And I had never been more certain of anything in my life.